lost a lot of blood. I tell you, when we woke up, I had a German perp gun staring me right in the face, and I felt so miserable. It didn't make any difference. They could have opened it out. They could have pulled the trigger. It wouldn't have made any difference. 'Cause I didn't get a chance to accomplish the mission.
Did you know Scott Eglinton Collins? Do you know him? He was in the last video.
I tell you, man, I've had so many people, like we got calls when I joined my wife and little baby girl in New York after I finally got back to the United States, left Washington. And they interrogated us. We were held in Washington for 1 week. We had so much information.
And another one is, was Omaha Beach, how terrible was it? Was it very, very bad?
In the prison camp?
No.
Omaha Beach.
He's talking about.
I wasn't on Omaha Beach, but I do bet it was. Any of those beachheads were really bad. Especially the initial forces.
You talked about the Russians buying their own tanks. There's a picture of a woman.
Yeah.
You can't probably see them back there. They all look like men to you, but this is the picture of a woman who is the mother of this family. These are her sons and her son's friends. And the Russians were absolutely serious about putting the war. This tank came from the United States. They bought it with their own family funds and donated it to the cause. I only point that out to you because there's a few books that are still in print that have a great deal of that in it. And it's really amazing to read some of this stuff and meet some of the people that lived it. And there's not very many in print anymore. There's a lot of older books that you have to find in church yard sales and so on. But this is one that is.
Dan, you brought 3 or 4 books that are still in print. Can you tell everyone what the names and authors
By
are?
the way, that is an outstanding.
Yes, I like that.
That's a very good one. Yeah, take a look at that.
And as soon as we saw what this, we knew that the Russians were not fooling around. The Germans couldn't stand up any longer. The worst thing they ever did was they tried to, in other words, defeat Germany, defeat Russia in the winter, number one. And when the families all, the whole family's fighting a war, they didn't stand a chance.
How'd you beat them? Like with a grenade or something?
How did you beat who? The Germans?
Yeah.
We had some help.
But we fired artillery. We used concentrate artillery fire. That, believe it or not, we could start off observation and spot. The Germans nicknamed us magic artillery. We could fire like 1 round of smoke for deception. And back through subordinate, what we call far direction centers, each battalion, like 105s, like we had armored, 18 105 millimeter howitzers in 1 battalion. We had availability of 3 battalions of 105s. They had 155 howitzers, larger, long toms, sometimes 240s, 8-inch. And we could mass those fires based on 1 round of smoke. They coordinated, set up the projectiles, the proper range, the elevation, and the proper fuse settings for the ammunition, load them all up, and in a matter of just a minute or 2, they could mass that whole volume of fire, like 96 guns, firing on 1 target. Out in the area. Pardon me?
The shells from those guns, the
Shells.
rounds, how big were those for the kids?
Oh, anywhere from 95 pounds up to one was 345 pounds. The 240 millimeters.
That's just 1 bullet.
That's 1 shell. And we also had a time fuse that we could, they could preset the time so that it would go off 20 feet above their heads, above the equipment or the troops' heads. Massive, like a blanket of artillery fire. That's why we were hot. They didn't, they tried to knock out all the forward observers. That's why we didn't last very long. let's see, the week that I was hit and captured, we lost 7 forward observers in 10 days period, 10-day period. Either wounded, captured, or KIA, killed master. Yes, young man.
How much food did you eat in prison?
Pardon me?
How much food did you eat in prison?
I can give you an example. We had a couple doctors who were captured in Africa. By the way, we had prisoners in this camp that had spent over 3.5 years in a German prison camp, including General Patton's son-in-law, Colonel Waters. He was like over 3 years as a prisoner of war. We had doctors figure it up on the German ration that they were feeding us. It was equivalent to 950 calories a day. A day.
Maybe you could put that in perspective for them, 950 calories.
Figure
Not very
900.
much.
You eat that much in
That's a big bag.
a lunch in school, probably. You eat that much.
That's what they had for all day.
Yes, sir.
Imagine doing that for a year straight, for 3 years.
What did they give you? Like, bread and milk, what did they give you? I mean, it's like, what did they give you?
What kind of food did you eat in
What does
prison
the
camp?
food consist
Horse
of?
meat. Horse meat was a predominant meat
Brown
factor.
bread, right?
And dark bread,
Toasted bread.
no toasted bread.
You didn't get a
And
little white
potatoes.
tablecloth either.
The lady over here.
Just had a question. When you said that that they were questioning your name, why was that? Were they questioning your identity when you were?
My name?
Yeah.
It was Schildt, Schildt. And that's as German, Dutch German as you could get.
Right, but would they just question your identity or just to make sure that you weren't a German?
See,
Is that?
the only thing, they had so many, even Germans, by the way, I asked a very good question during this time because they knew they were defeated. They're thinking this good. The Russians made an onslaught. They were going through that countryside like something unbelievable. And they were, some of the Germans was confiscating American uniforms, GI uniforms, and trying to escape, going down like through Yugoslavia, trying to get out of the way from the Russians. And they were just very dubious. I tell you, the Russians, it gave us one of the roughest interrogations that we encountered from the whole war, including the German. Because they're very skeptical people.
Did they think you were a German soldier that had defected and run over to this?
Yeah.
Right, that's what I was.
Yeah,
that's it.
That was my question,
The guy way in the
actually.
back has a question for you.
Yes, bring it back.
Can you speak up nice and loud so he can hear you?
You know how you got shot? How did you get shot? Where did you get shot?
Where'd you get shot?
Where did I get shot?
How did you get shot? How did you get shot and where did you get shot?
On the face, back of the ear, along the side of the head.
You didn't get shot with a gun. You got hit with a
I got
hand
hit by a
grenade.
grenade.
It's a little bomb that blew up.
Do you know what a hand grenade is, where it explodes?
You see
in a
them where
bunch of little
you hold
pieces?
a lever and you pull a pin and they throw it. In fact, as soon as that lever is released, it only has a couple of seconds and then it detonates. See? And it blows the shrapnel. It's like an artillery shell, except it's very small, like a plum or a pear, and it scatters, it blows up and it scatters that shrapnel all over the place.
How far were you from the grenade when it blew up?
Right in front of me. Couldn't do anything about it. I tried to pick it up and throw it back out at him.
Didn't have enough time.
I can tell you, buddy, I could go through some gruesome end. I had a time, I wasn't doing all the being hit. I had a Thompson submachine gun. That worked overtime. I tell you, if we were told, in fact, I met Fort Knox, Kentucky, I met the colonel that I was working with. He was a 28-year-old field commander, brilliant, that was in charge of a combat command. He had 3 combat commands in the Armored Division. At 28 years old, he commanded one whole combat. That meant a regiment of tanks, a regiment of armored infantry. He had all the support helmets and everything in that, 3 of those in a combat division. And he told me if we accomplished the mission, I'm very proud to tell you that we tried to we almost talked him into giving up and taking a whole bunch of German prisoners back through our lines. We'd have been awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. But then it was already, we were about 2,000 yards into enemy territory when we were hit and captured. But we were up high, we were in the land of the weak. See, down the gully, if you can't see your enemy that's shooting at you, you're worthless. You know, it doesn't do any good. Yeah.
How did you escape out of the camp?
Well,
Prison?
see, they were going to march us out. The German, by the way, the Germans that were in command of this camp, some of them were good. There's 2 elements of German. The Wehrmacht, the real German army. That was like you probably read or will read about General Patton and General Rommel. Actually, those 2 were, it was like fighting a duel. In fact, the General Patton, boy, there's a book and a movie to see if you haven't. He was he believed in, what do you call it? Reincarnation. And he wanted, he brought it out in the movie in his book. Fight General Rommel, who was a brilliant German general, tanker, but Wehrmacht. See, the real German soldier, that was like fighting a duel. And they were, and not the SS, that was, they're the boys that gave military and gave the peoples a rough time all over the world, all over Europe. Yes, but.
How many soldiers did the German have?
Pardon me?
How many soldiers did the German have?
How many German
How many German soldiers did they have?
Was their army as big as the American army?
Oh, they were much larger at one time. You see, they had already had, when we entered the war, they had already conquered a lot of countries, smaller countries in Europe.
Maybe I can help clear that up. The Germans invaded a lot of countries in Europe, and their army